Vince McMahon once walked away from a limousine explosion unscathed, so it's entirely possible he is immortal. But assuming the inevitable will someday come to pass, WWE and the entire wrestling industry will suddenly find itself in tumult. Believe it or not, the subject of the boss's death is actually an open conversation within WWE, although I wouldn't mention it in front of him too often. Awkward, innit? Now in his 70s and with the company beholden to stockholders, it's a corporate responsibility to have a contingency for succession. But that's shrouded in the higher powers' cowl of secrecy. What will actually happen once the boss joins the great ring in the sky, besides a spike in Raw's ratings? And don't think he wouldn't do it just for that. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, and cheerful this, innit? These are 10 things that'll happen when Vince McMahon dies. Number 10. Organized chaos. No matter how much one prepares for it, death always comes like a blow to the balls, especially if it's sudden. The company has faced tragedy before, countless times in fact, and always the mantra has been, the show must go on. The magnitude of Vince's loss would seriously test that philosophy. No one could blame Stephanie and Triple H or Vince's closest aides such as Kevin Dunn if they took some time away, meaning the company would enter autopilot usually reserved for those sudden northeast blizzards or when mumps made a comeback last year. It's unlikely Raw would be cancelled, longest running weekly episodic and all that shit, but angles would be heavily curtailed and in all likelihood the show would be given over to highlights. It's almost impossible to know what exactly the on-air reaction would be, as to date every precedent has been set by Vince himself. Number 9. Stock price changes. WWE is a publicly traded company, and the value of its stock fluctuates in accordance with business circumstances as much as it does business success. The death of the chairman would have as big an impact as a record year of profit. And as we know from Vince's son, who is constantly making his children watch him try to kill himself, why, Shane? Money talks. Take Apple as an example. In the wake of the passing of their own visionary leader, Steve Jobs, company stock took a dive. WWE would see a similar blow on Wall Street, but it probably wouldn't lead to a spate of investors selling up. Apple began to prosper under the new leadership of Tim Cook, and it's eminently possible that a fresh face with exciting new ideas could add similar stimulus to WWE's rock stock. As long as it's not Mike Adamle. Number 8. A unique Raw tribute show. The traditional 10-bell salute with the entire roster and on this occasion probably the entire backroom staff overflowing on the stage is a certainty as part of a glittering and much-deserved tribute. The rest of the show, though, is much harder to predict, beholden to the whims of Vinceness. Once upon a time, you could have easily imagined the whole episode given over to his memorial, and even the possibility of a televised funeral, which is the most Vince thing ever to stipulate in his will. Maybe don't let Triple H go all Katie Vick though, eh? However, better taste may prevail at the discretion of his kin. Given Stephanie and Shane are at the forefront of WWE programming, it's likely to be unavoidably somber, but you feel a bombastic send-off would be far more befitting the CEO. Number 7. The idiotic daughter and his doofus son-in-law take over. CM Punk called it, God, I miss you. The order of succession in WWE has been very clear for some time now. By all accounts, Vince's son has no real interest in administering the company, and it's widely expected that power will transfer to wife and husband pairing of she-devil and chief brand officer Stephanie and executive VP of talent Paul Triple H Levesque. Both are already pretty hands-on with the running of the company, with Steph going around promoting the WWE name and making poorly judged tweets. Whilst Trips has earned the forgiveness of many a wrestling lover thanks to his transformation of NXT. Remember when it was this shit? Though both know the wrestling business inside out, neither are business persons. So whether the role of chairman is suitable for either is unclear. Number 6. Raw becomes NXT? When will we learn not to get our hopes up? One idea ardent wrestling fans can't get out of their minds is when Vince pops his clogs, Triple H will gradually tweak Raw to the NXT level. It's possible, but unlikely to be a direct mirror. NXT is certainly popular and definitely stellar, but WWE does things as it does for a reason. It might clearly be a better product, but there are no guarantees the NXT style will succeed in the mainstream. That isn't to say the status quo will remain, of course. Many of WWE's more frustrating features are direct orders from you-know-who. And unless Triple H is a loyal adherent to his father-in-law, and NXT tells us he is f***ing not, many of these annoyances will gradually diminish. Finally! Besides, there's always the chance Steph will take over operations. No! Number 5, a Hall of Fame induction special. As soon as Vince McMahon kicks the bucket, all bets will be off for the marquee name in the following year's Hall of Fame. Not you, Repo Man. McMahon's contribution to the industry is utterly unparalleled. It'd be no exaggeration to say he is the single most important figure in its history. Inexplicable humility means the boss refuses to be inducted until after his death, but it'll happen at the first opportunity once that time comes. Frankly, the whole ceremony could be devoted to Vince and few would complain. His children will be front and center of the podium with just about everybody who ever worked for him invited. Perhaps some stars of the inevitably all-conquering XFL revival will be present as well, and I'll bet R-Truth inducts him too. Number 4, a new era begins. WWE have tried to manufacture new eras several times in their history. First in 1995 with mixed results, and then again in 2016. But it simply doesn't work like that. Eras aren't defined by a load of social media buzzwords proclaiming as such, with no appreciable change occurring. No one gives a about what's trending, all right, Michael? Eras are a natural process, usually instigated by some unprescribed altercation of circumstance. The steroid scandal marked the end of an era, as did the sale of WCW. Likewise, McMahon's passing will cause the same sort of seismic shift, not just in WWE, but the whole business. Quite how it'll manifest itself is difficult to predict, but things will never, ever be the same again. Number 3, a different philosophy. Vince McMahon's well-documented inclinations and aversions, namely that he likes walking blocks of granite and doesn't like basically anyone the internet roots for, have evidently been tempered in recent years. But for all Vince indulges the hardcore from time to time, as he did with Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho, there's still a certain type cast as the company's real stars. Brock Lesnar, Big Match John, the human roadmap Jinder Mahal, and, you guessed it, Roman Reigns. Those are the guys, his guys. Triple H, despite every physical indication, is seemingly more interested in scouting the indies for talent than a Chippendale casting call. His role in getting these fellas over on NXT has allowed him to indirectly influence the makeup of the top of the main roster. For now, they still fight for room at the table amongst the meatheads, but that's bound to change once programming isn't orientated to Vince's taste. The big dog ain't going anywhere though, because he is great. Number 2. It'll all come out. So long as Vince McMahon directs the fate of so many within the industry, few with anything to lose have the grapefruits to speak openly about him. As soon as The Undertaker stops off in Greenwich, though, all that will change. Doubtless, McMahon's burial will uncover some dirt, but it's unlikely much of it will be fertile. It's a cynical world, and many will see Vince's departure as an opportunity for self-promotion, as long-forgotten or utterly inconsequential names will begin to crawl out the woodwork with their outlandish stories, each in the vain hope of making themselves relevant. My money is on this guy. Number 1. His true genius will be realized. It's a cliche, but the greatest geniuses aren't truly appreciated until they're gone. Whether Vince's own artistry is quite on the same scale as Van Gogh is debatable, but in wrestling terms, he is basically a god. No one tell him that, though. please. It's no lie that some of Vince's practices seem entirely counterproductive to the business, especially in recent times, but that doesn't undo over 4 decades spent reshaping his company from a regional heavyweight into a global phenomenon. Whether you agree with his methods or not, no one can argue McMahon's immense passion and tireless commitment to the cause, and it'll quickly become apparent that he's irreplaceable once he's gone. Those who want change now, be careful what you wish for. Life will go on and WWE will forge ahead as ever, but it won't be the same without Vince at the helm.
Gosh, can you believe that person said that about that particular video on that entry? I sure can't. But you should like, share and subscribe below anyway. And also, the people who made this video, they're right here. Go follow them and give them some love. Also, there's more content, probably above my head. Check it out. Or don't. 50-50.